All right, on tonight's episode, we got something very special for everyone. We're going to cover some of the midseason awards as we approach the pseudo halfway point in the season. We're going to break down our favorite playoff teams and again, probably take a couple jabs at our favorite punching bag here in Cleveland, Deshaun Watson, all coming up tonight on a very special midseason episode of the DFS Deli. Have a seat. Welcome on in. Welcome in to the DFS Deli. I am the proprietor of this delicatessen, Saleh Ali Shahid, and shockingly, surprisingly, I got one of my boys, my favorite peeps on the planet here, my bowling buddy, and of course, the host of the No Broken Legs podcast, a fellow Cleveland Browns supporter, because we already discussed that, not necessarily a fan, but a supporter of our Cleveland Browns, Evan Belfiore. Did I get it?
You got it, man. Belfiore.
Yes. Let's get it. Evan, how you feeling, man? Welcome to the Deli. I'm happy to have you here, bro. How you doing?
Happy to have you. We were happy to have you on our show a few weeks back, and it's happy to, get to be on the other side of the podcast this time.
Yeah, no, you're just a talking head. No editing, no nothing. As soon as you're done with me, you can clock out. It's all good. It's all good. So, I kind of wanted to jump on with you only because, like I said, we had a really good back and forth via text over these past couple of weeks. It was great being on your podcast, kind of breaking down what you do on Broken Legs every week is kind of break down game by game, the betting lines. I mean, that side of it is kind of the opposite side of what I do here at the DFS Deli because I take everything from a fantasy standpoint. But at the end of the day, collective minds are always focused on general football, and we have a lot of opinions and takes on that. So we are approaching the trade deadline, and kind of the midseason mark where we know who's bad, we know who's good, we know who's kind of fringe. And I kind of want to break that down, kind of get your opinions on that because we can only say so much via text, right? I mean, like we can print out pages of the things that we've said to one another, but once we get to sitting down and kind of getting the talking heads going, I think we can be a little more opinionated on what we feel the direction of the NFL season's going. So where I want to start is because I kind of want to get this out of the way. If we got to talk about our boots on the ground Cleveland Browns. Don't let the Buffalo Bills jersey fool you. Okay, that's my number one squad. But as Browns supporters, we got to talk about it. So let's approach it from a couple different angles. Obviously, we can start what we're going to do with or what we think the Browns organization is going to do with the Deshaun Watson situation and what the Browns as an organization have to do to either say, we want to make a strong playoff push sitting at 4-2, third in their division. Are they the team that's like on the edge of being like good? And what kind of moves do they have to make? So you tell me, why don't you start with your opinion about the whole Deshaun Watson fiasco? Because that's what it's shaping up to be right now.
It's just another embarrassment for Cleveland Browns and just people in Cleveland to have to deal with yet again from this organization that continues to be a fucking dumpster fire. They're 4-2 and it's a disaster. Like everything, like everybody's trying to jump ship. We know PJ Walker is not the guy, and this is primarily what we've argued about a lot is like who's out there to go get. And I don't know if those guys are really out there. I don't know what you're achieving with those guys. Like they just got to hope that Deshaun Watson comes back and just magically starts playing like he did mostly against Tennessee. But even in that game, he had 2 or 3 moments where he just panicked and he was comfortable that game for most of the game because Tennessee's just not that good. So when he's comfortable, he can probably be pretty good. But if you're going to make a real run to and in the playoffs, he's going to have to be better than that. I don't think he has it in him. So I think the Browns are a fringe playoff team. I think they're 4-2. So that's a really good spot. You'd rather be there than like the Chargers are 2-4.
Yeah. They're complete opposite end.
And they've got their own set of problems. So it's better to be 4-2 with problems than 2-4, but it's
true.
They got Seattle this week. Seattle's tough. Like Pete Carroll's a good coach, and Kevin Stefanski tends to lose these games against really good coaches. So
Mm-hmm.
you lose this game, you got to win next week because then you got Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and it's going to be real difficult to go 2-0 in that stretch. So
I 100% agree. I mean, I mean, as a pseudo Seattle fan myself, you're holding the L this week. I mean, you don't have Jerome
on the road,
Ford.
you would expect that to be the case.
Yeah, you're going across country against the 12s, and you're starting PJ Walker. So it doesn't bode well. I mean, this defense can take this team to a reputable record, but again, from let's get your opinion on, do you think the Browns should make a move? A, and B, do you think this is the type of roster that could upset some people in the playoffs if they were to get to that point?
It would have to be matchup dependent. I don't think they're beating a disciplined team like Kansas City.
Okay.
I don't know what Miami and who else I think? Oh, Jacksonville. I don't know what Miami and Jacksonville are going to look like come the playoffs. Those are two teams that probably, if they really want to make a move to win the Super Bowl, they're going to have to get some help on defense. So
Sure.
what do those teams look like? But we'd take both of those teams over the Browns right now. I like Baltimore than I like the Browns. Pittsburgh continues to be a thorn in the side of all of us. They just won't be bad. They just won't. And then I got to hear Filipponi on around the AFC North constantly trying to fire Mike Tomlin. Like, it's just like, you guys stink, and all you do is win games. And
Right.
you're trying to run him out of town. It makes no sense.
That's a synonym for absurdity. Like, Tomlin is a fantastic coach, and you're talking about firing this cat. Like, for what? I just don't get it. But again, we're boots on the ground in Cleveland, not in Pittsburgh. I can't speak to what their fans are feeling. All I can speak
Yeah.
to is what we as Clevelanders are feeling, and that's that this Deshaun Watson trade will probably go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history. It's certainly shaping up to be
Yeah.
like that.
It looks like we're going to be next offseason exactly like we were this previous offseason. Well, he was hurt most of last year, and he probably tries to come back at some point this year, maybe I don't know, where are we at now? Week 8, so like maybe
Mhm.
week 10, 11. I mean, you want him, or you definitely want him back for that Baltimore game.
Yeah,
I mean, you
these
can get
divisional
through.
games are gonna be the ones. Yes,
Yeah, you
absolutely.
got to have him back for those 2 games. But even when he plays, what's he going to look like? I don't know. Like
See,
I just, so what? Are we going to have the rust conversation again? Oh, he's got to knock off the rust again. Like, what are we talking about? We're a year and a half into this thing, and he's still knocking off the rust. What are we doing? It's just a
I've
disaster. It's just a complete disaster.
said it before. I'll keep saying it. Deshaun Watson is trash. But comma, as an organization, and it's probably exactly like you said. They have to figure out, and they're going to figure out their long-term plans in these next 3 weeks. So let's say Deshaun Watson takes the Seattle game off, and I think it's
Well, he's already
Arizona.
out for Seattle. Yeah, and then Arizona,
So
who
let's
may
say
have Kyler back, which is its own can of worms.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say PJ Walker is the quarterback for the next 2 weeks. Let's say they don't make a trade. Let's say, and again, what I was saying about Jacoby Brissett is probably not going to happen because Sam Howell is garbage. So
Yeah, he's
eventually,
not very good.
eventually the Commanders are going to have to make the move to Brissett.
And they're
So
what?
he's off the table.
I mean, they're 3-4. They haven't looked good doing it. They're -50 on their point differential, but they pick up a win this week. They're 4-4. They feel like they're right in it. We think Minnesota got themselves back into it. They're 3-4. So why wouldn't Washington be there, or at least
Yeah, but
think they could? You can't just bail on the season by trading Brissett and saying, "Oh yeah, Howell's our guy," even though we know he's probably he's gonna fuck us when it really matters.
well, that's what I'm saying. I think if the commies say we can make a playoff run, but it's not going to be with Sam Howell, we can actually get this done with Jacoby Brissett, then they should probably do that as opposed to
Yeah,
continuously riding with what's basically a detriment to their organization. It's one of the teams that are at this fringe quarterback position, this fringe, like, is he the guy? Is he not the guy? Could we
no,
win with
we
the
know
guy?
that
Like,
Howell's not the guy. Like, he's not the guy,
I
and
wanted him to
that's
be.
not. I think he's just not good enough. He's a backup quarterback. He's Casey Keenum. He's Gardner Minshew. He's in that he's in that group that Baker gets thrown into, even though Baker's like a half level to a level better than those guys,
Yeah,
just on
yeah, I would agree.
arm talent alone.
I would
Um,
agree.
but Like he's not a starting NFL quarterback. He can get you by for a couple of weeks. I'm still surprised they rode with him instead of Tyler Heineke. That dude just seems to win football games. I figured you'd at least give him a shot. He doesn't lose you games, and that's important. Look what Tyrod Taylor's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to blow my mind that offense looks capable. So, I mean, that's just more strikes against Daniel Jones. But, like those guys aren't really out there.
Shocking what happens when you actually throw to Darren Waller. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, just give the ball to Saquon and give the ball to Dan. Get out of the way. I mean, like, what the hell? Shout out to Tyrod, by the way. First black quarterback to win a starting job or starting game for that organization. Like, how old is that organization?
Wow. They've never had a black quarterback win a game?
No, they haven't. The only one that's actually started a game other than him was Geno Smith.
Wow.
Right. Interesting. Right.
Wow.
Crazy.
And they had some real white bread quarterbacks too, because they had Phil Simms back in the day.
Yeah.
Like Eli now.
And now they're stuck with Daniel Jones, just like we're stuck with
for another
Deshaun
year.
Watson.
Yeah, a lot of bad quarterback contracts out there.
Oh God.
And I don't even know. And we have no idea what he's going to look like against Baltimore. That's a really good defense. They're going to make him uncomfortable. So's Pittsburgh. Like that's just a recipe for disaster. And like he keeps panicking in the big moments, and even not big moments. He's finding pressure that's not really there. And that's what happened. And Jimmy and I were talking about this on our pod. Was he had like this weird jump pass to Jerome Ford on third down. It was like first quarter, and you could tell he panicked because he threw a jump pass and it's football. But instead of like some of the pressure was coming on his right, but instead of just sort of stepping up in the pocket and leaking out through a gap, like he's done probably a million times throughout his career, and now you force the guy covering Jerome Ford. Okay, I've either got to cover this guy or I got to go tackle him or he's going to run for the first down. And then, whatever he does, you either run for the first down or you throw it to Ford. Instead, he does this weird jump pass thing that, skips the Ford, and now you're punting. And it's like those are the things that you look at and you say, well, if he's supposed to be able to do all these things out of the pocket, then doesn't he have to be able to get out of the pocket when those opportunities present themselves? And
absolutely,
that's just the few years that he's been off show. I think he has money. I think he got comfortable. I don't think he's not hurt. Just to be clear, I think he's hurt. I think he's got a real injury. And I think it's not going to get better until after this season. If they would have just come out and said he's got to be out for a few weeks because this is a pretty problematic rotator cuff injury,
right?
People wouldn't be freaking out, but they can't get their fucking story straight. And it's like,
correct.
You guys are the ones supplying the information. Like he's going to play, then he's a scratch, then he's day to day. Now he's not playing this game, even though he's medically cleared. Which, like the real definition of that means he's not at risk of making the injury worse. That's like what they mean when they say he's medically cleared. It's not a pain tolerance thing. So I get that. But then he gets benched because he gets hit on that shoulder. And even though he's not at risk of aggravating that injury, it looks like he aggravated that injury. And then they can't get their story straight as to whether that was why he was in the game or not. And then
his ego.
I benched him. He benched him. That's what happened. He benched him because even if Watson wanted to play, he wasn't good enough to help them win. As bad as PJ Walker was, he was worse. Those few passes that he threw were awful. That interception he threw was really bad. And I don't even think that was a shoulder strength issue. I think he just misread what was happening because defenses have adjusted while he's been off the field. There's been a big shift. There was the crest of offense. Now defenses are taking over year. A lot of athletes on the defensive side of the ball. The tackling seems to be better in general. Even the bad teams tend to tackle like more than they don't.
Sure.
And a lot of innovation with the two deep safeties and all the crazy shit that they do underneath that. And Watson hasn't been there for that evolution. He's been on the outside looking in for 2 years. So now he's under center, and it's a whole new ball game out in front of him. he's got guys moving into places that he doesn't expect them to be in because when he was playing, they didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the educational debt that I'm very skeptical he'll ever be able to catch up to.
So as I was alluding to earlier, and before we kick it to like what the rest of the AFC is going to do and what we think they're going to do, is that again I was alluding to the litmus test that Deshaun Watson is going to have to go through within the next 4 weeks, right? So he's out this week. Let's say they hold the L to Seattle, which is probably going to happen. They take on Arizona, which he'll probably be out for again, recovering and rehabbing. They beat Arizona, which is fine. It's sans Kyler Murray because the defense is good enough to hang with the Cardinals. They should be fine.
And the Kyler Murray doesn't scare me.
Yeah, let's say Deshaun Watson is ready for this series of the Baltimore and Steelers game, which you do need to win, by the way, as an organization, they're going to say, listen, if he gets both these wins, we're good. If he loses both these games, the freaking organization is in turmoil once again because you lose those games, you're done. You have no chance for the division, period. So
yeah, they got to at least split those 2 games, but that's going to be tough. Baltimore really gashed them on the ground. So that's a tough matchup coming up. They really exposed that Browns defense to some things, but a lot of those things I thought San Francisco was going to do, and they weren't successful doing those things. But then, Gardner Minshew starts running for touchdowns in fucking Indianapolis. So it's like, I don't know what to think of this defense. And I also don't like it's the big moments. And that's one of the things that I've really looked at with the Browns for a while now is what happens in those big moments. And they just get beat almost across the board, player to player in the big moments. Take a look at that San Francisco drive at the end to get into field goal range. Like Brandon Ayuk just got an extra 25 yards while a couple of Browns players escorted him down the field like he was the president.
Look what happened to Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman was the same exact way. My man, his only second catch of the darn game, 75 yards that way because 4 Browns were looking directly at him. Yeah.
It's like if you guys are going to be elite, you can't have these types of breakdowns. And Myles Garrett with the penalties, and then he's expecting them to blow it dead, but they don't.
And then Josh Downs touchdown. Yep, absolutely.
It's just those little mental lapses. That game shouldn't, even with PJ Walker, that game should have been close because they gifted them those 2 big plays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. So I would say one thing before we go ahead and predict the rest of the AFC is that my opinion about Deshaun Watson as a person, again, I don't know him. I don't know what he's going through psychologically, nor do I care. All I can do is speculate on what I see from the outside, right? So as an average dude, I make less than 100K a year. I got 2 kids. I'm just an average guy, right? And again, everybody knows me from these DFS streets. I gamble to try and win money, all right? So several years ago, my first big hit in DFS, I won $10,000, right? It was one of the happiest days of my life. This is just 10 grand. This dude literally shits 10 grand, right? So referring to Deshaun Watson. I win $10,000. Bro, I called off work the next day. I literally said, I'm good. Now,
just for the day.
Just for that day. But give me $230 million and I got it and I ain't got to work. Bro, there's something mentally about that where you're just like, you know what? It's damn shoulder, man. I'm gonna take some time off. I'm not saying again, I'm not gonna put the speculation on that guy, but I see it. You see it. There's others out there that see. Brady Quinn sees it. It's like, oh, you can't talk about my quarterback like that, blah, blah, blah. No, yes, you can. Because everybody has a right to their opinion. They can only go based off what they see. Yeah. And what I see is a guy that doesn't want to play the game of football. Like you said, he doesn't want to adjust to a new defensive scheme that's been popping up in the NFL. He doesn't want to make those adjustments.
It's hard. It's really difficult.
And it requires work. It requires work. Why do you think so many people, bash Kyler Murray so bad when Call of Duty comes out? The dude don't study. He's athletically gifted. He can play the game.
Call of Duty. That's why he's playing Call of Duty.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, you got these athletically gifted guys, but again, when the money hits, because remember, Kyler got paid too. When the money hits, man, things change, bro. Things change, period. With some people.
And not just that, but the expectations change, which means the circumstances around how you do what you do change. And that's true for anything. I mean, you're getting paid millions of dollars, regardless of what your job is. Whoever's holding you accountable wants results. whether you're working on Wall Street, if you own a business, pro sports, whatever. But we see this all the time in basketball. We see the guys that are great in high school because they are just so athletically gifted. They're just men among boys. LeBron was like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a grown
Yeah.
ass 23-year-old man when he was in high school. like,
Middle
what are you
school.
gonna do? That's just what his genetics made him. Like, what are you gonna do? And but then, there's that next level. You get to college, and there's like a lot of guys that can play well in college, but they can't play in the pros. But then there's still those super athletic dudes that are they can still dominate. But then you get to the NFL, then you get to the NBA,
Yeah.
everybody's an athlete. Now everybody can jump out of the building. And now you have to have other things. You have to be able to dribble. You have to be able to play defense. You have to be able to understand that when he comes over to pick you, that these guys are going to rotate in this way so that you know where to be on defense. And you can't just rely on your athleticism. You have to be able to understand what's going on. And that's a real delimiter. That's a cut, man. That is a cut for how good you can be. And that seems to be affecting a lot of these quarterbacks that are more athletic, and more of their game is based off improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
There's guys that improvise a lot that are good. Like Patrick Mahomes improvises a lot, but he also works within the structure very well. For all the crap Lamar takes, he works within the structure of that offense very well. And he's thrown the ball well this year. I think he's thrown the ball better than he has since his MVP year. So he's shown that he can do the studying and adapt. Tua, man. Like, I made fun of Tua for years, and now all that dude does is throw for 400 yards.
It's true. It's true. Very true.
Josh Allen is up and down, but he's carrying a pretty big load, and that maybe proves the point that, I don't know really what my point, where I was getting there. I kind of got off track there, but like, you see Josh Allen is a solid.
You're speculating on the development of quarterbacks and how they can evolve with the game, but other quarterbacks just don't want to do it.
Yeah, some of these guys just don't want to do it, and we see that in sports. Happens all the time. Guys don't want to do the work. They got paid, and they're, James Harden's never happy. That dude's amazing at basketball, but he just doesn't seem to care about playing basketball.
Correct. That's a really good example, actually. That's a really good example. So excuse me.
Yeah,
you kind of skated over it, and I'm going to stay there right now. So you kind of glossed over some of the good QBs and how they're scattered around the AFC. So I'm going to go ahead and stay right there. I'm going to go ahead and kind of put you on the spot about it. So midway through the season, let me know if you were to start the playoffs now, not where they lay, but if you were to start the playoffs now in the AFC, where are your 7 teams coming from? And also, is there a team that's surprising you in the AFC right now?
So
on the spot,
looking at the standings, I was on the Jaguars last year. That was probably my best bet of the year, was plus 600 to win the division for the Jags. All over them this year. They're sitting 5-2, not surprised. They're in. They're going to win that division. Kansas City 6-1. They're winning that division. They're great. For all the talk that people make, and for all of the things that we do with power rankings where there's somebody else at the top of the power rankings, we all know that when it gets to week 12, the Chiefs are going to be at the top of the power rankings. So what are we doing?
I haven't disagreed with you yet. So go on.
I don't know what to make of the AFC North. I don't know what to do with the AFC North. That Pittsburgh continues to defy expectations. They shouldn't be, but they are a borderline playoff team. If Joe Burrow is going to continue to get healthy as the season goes on, as he has progressed, he kind of pans out to be back to his old self in 2 to 4 weeks. That makes them a formidable opponent. That gives them an opportunity to get to 10 wins. Baltimore's good. That looks like the team that's going to win the North. So that would be my 3rd division winner. And I keep looking at the AFC East, and I want to take Miami, but I just can't. They don't seem to do well against teams that can really, really make the game physical, get them down in the mud. And right now, Buffalo's a game and a half back of them for the division, but they still have a game to play against each other. Buffalo probably wins that game. And that gives them all the tiebreaker. I got Miami as the first playoff team in So Buffalo, Baltimore, Jacksonville, Kansas City, not in that order. I got Kansas City 1. I think they're still just better than everybody. Even though
Sure.
they're sleepwalking to 6-1 for crying out loud. They're plus 73 in point differential. And all we're doing is talking about how they haven't played well. Like, oh my God, what is going to happen when they go on a run? Like,
they're already on a run. They lost their first game and they've won 6 straight. So they're already on a run.
And then, like, do I think the Jets are going to get to 9-10 wins? No. Do I think Houston can get to 9 wins? Ooh, it's juicy, man.
Say it. Jimmy will be happy about it. Say it.
When I brought up that Houston was like plus 240 to make the playoffs a couple weeks ago, I may have put a small wager on that because I think that team's good. I think CJ Stroud can play.
Small wager.
He can play. The dude can play.
Yeah, I'm with it.
So that's a team you're going to have to contend with. Probably the other 2 teams come out of the AFC North. That's okay. That's what I feel. I feel like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Cincinnati are going to be, and the Chargers. I'm sorry, totally forgot about the Chargers. So
you can't forget about the Chargers. They suck.
They're a mess. Like, they're 2-4. They've got that. As Cleveland fans, we have seen the second half of the season where everybody knows the coach is getting fired, and they're just like, you know what? Just get rid of this fucking guy. We're sick of him. It doesn't work. He is a defensive coach, and they have had the worst defense over like his tenure. They can't stop anybody. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. I think Justin Herbert's a really good quarterback. Doesn't seem to have the high peak. He's more Matt Ryan than, I don't know, like a Josh Allen or
that's a good comp. That's a pretty good comp.
Yeah, he's a really solid quarterback. He's real technical. If you put him in the right offense where he can just sort of dissect things and make decisions quickly and distribute the ball, he'll do really well. I wish they threw the ball downfield more often. He seems to be really good at just about everything you need to do to be a quarterback.
You can't without Mike Williams. You can't do that. They don't have that guy anymore. So it's a wrap. It's a wrap, man. It's a wrap.
I guess
you don't mention the Chargers on this show.
All right. I was gonna say, if I'm the Chargers, I'm trying to get the offensive coordinator from Detroit. I'm trying to pair him with Herbert and just saying, there it is. I'm just going to run with those guys and see how it works out because he's got something. He's making Jared Goff look like a real top 10 NFL quarterback for more than a season now, and it's blowing my fucking mind.
He is a top 10 quarterback because he just simply is a top 10 quarterback.
So that comes down. So basically, I think it comes down to Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati, with the Chargers sort of on the outside fringe. I don't believe in the Colts. The Titans aren't very good. Denver stinks. Vegas stinks. And the Patriots stink. And like I said, I don't believe in the Jets. So it's there, and they've got the inside track. They're 2 games up on the Chargers, man. Like, that's where they want to be. So do I think they're going to do it? No, I don't. And this is somebody who took the over on the Browns this year at 9.5. They can't keep winning games like this. PJ Walker is not a good enough quarterback. The defense is played mostly great. And I wonder if also some of the problems they had last week in terms of giving up chunk plays was them being more aggressive going for turnovers. Because that's been the big talk. They haven't been turning the ball over. Well, they got a lot of turnovers. They maybe took some extra chances, gave up on some plays, but maybe they were getting a little over-aggressive. But if that's how they're going to play over-aggressive, that's probably how they have to play. And you just have to roll the dice that you can somehow not give up enough of those chunk plays, or, that chunk play goes for 50 yards and they get a field goal out of it instead of a touchdown. Because they can't rely on their offense to consistently move the ball. Like, their defense has to find ways to put them in advantageous positions. Like, get them the ball at midfield. So all it takes is a PJ throwing like 2 screen passes, or, they seem to be finding ways to get 1 or 2 Njoku plays a game. I don't know why it's not like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, but we only can call those plays once a half, apparently.
He's not good. He's just not good. I'll just put the stamp on it right now. David Njoku's just not that good.
But if they can scheme him open on those other plays, why is this only happening once or twice a game? So it might not just be that Njoku's not good, but they're just not coaching and scheming very well either.
Earn your targets. Get open. Get open, bro, and be found. I gotta.
They might not know how because their quarterbacks keep skipping the ball to them. So they might.
It's true.
They might be overcompensating to find a different spot that their quarterback might actually be able to hit.
This is very true. So to recap, it looks like you're on the Chiefs, Jags, Bills as your division winners, along with the Ravens, and then you
Yeah,
got two teams from the Northie going in. And if I heard you correctly, Bengals
it's probably going to be the
and
Bengals and the Steelers
Bengals
because
and Steelers. Okay,
if you have just spent the last 25 years just betting money on what is the worst possible outcome for Cleveland fans, you would have already been retired and living on some fucking beach in the Bahamas in tropical paradise because that just seems to be what happens.
yeah,
We peaked with Baker winning the playoff game in Pittsburgh. That was awesome. Then they lose the they lose the Chad Henne. God damn, I couldn't remember his name.
yeah,
Chad
Chad
Henne
Henne,
in
yeah,
Kansas
Chad
City. He
Henne,
came in
yeah,
because Mahomes got hurt. And then
yeah,
it's just
and
been a
converted
downward
third and
trend ever
14,
since.
a 3rd and 14 run to Chad Henne to lose the game.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And that was
That was
also the game where people were really critical of Baker. And this was one of those moments where, yeah, Baker he did not handle the pressure well in that situation, but also the great offensive line that they had, Chris Jones just barreled through the line. Like he just won his one-on-one matchup. And that kind
right.
of gets back to what worries me about the Browns. I don't know how they're going to, in those situations where everybody has to win their one-on-one matchups, I just don't think they have the guys to win those consistently enough to get to the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl. I mean, we
Sure.
haven't talked much about Jedrick Wills lately, but they also haven't really been doing much on offense. So, there's just are we, is he dropping back? Is he doing good, or is it just a product of the cut down offense that they're running? He's only got to block for 2 seconds instead of 3. And if
That's
but if
fair.
that's the case, why aren't we running the 2-second plays with Watson?
This is true. This is true. All right, so I'm gonna break it down for you like a fraction. Okay, I like your picks. They're very well thought out and intricate. But as you know, your boy is bold, and your boy likes to be off the grain a little bit. Okay, so number 1 seed is your Kansas City Chiefs. Their schedule is an absolute joke. So ain't no way they're losing more than 2 games the rest of the season. So
Yeah,
that's your clear cut number 1 seed. No doubt about it. Number 2, your Jacksonville Jaguars. I 100% agree with you on that. Their division is sauce. I think Houston is going to be good in the next 2 years just
yeah, oh
because of
yeah,
the Browns. Because of the Browns and all those
yeah.
picks. So they are going to be single-handedly responsible for the resurrection of the Houston Texans. Okay, so I'm gonna sing a different tune in about 1 to 2
Oh
years.
man,
That the
and that
Texans
would
are probably going
totally
to be
buy into
dominating
the
this division.
bet on the worst outcome for the Browns. That is a total bet on the worst
That's
outcome for the Browns.
another
The
one. That's
Houston's
another
awesome in
one.
2 years.
And they will be. All that draft
With
capital,
an
are you
Ohio
crazy?
State quarterback just as like an extra FU on top.
That's another one. That's another point.
Just the torture never ends.
Yeah, but for this year, Jacksonville is very well built. They lead the league in turnovers on defense, so they kind of get the ball away from you. So I love that defense, love that offense, and it's kind of clicking at the right moments. So
Yeah.
Jacksonville is probably going to be the number 2 seed for me. Number 3 is going to come from the North. It's going to be Baltimore.
Ooh.
With Todd Monken's offense that Lamar is settling into now, I think that
Yeah.
this offense, along with an always solid defense,
Oh.
is going to make fits for everybody else in the rest of the division. So, and not just the division, but all their non-divisional, opponents or whatnot. I mean, we saw them put the absolute beat down on the Lions last week, and the Lions were the one team that beat the Chiefs. But then it's always
Yeah.
full circle because it's like,
No Kelsey,
remember,
no Jones.
yeah, like
Caveats to that Detroit
yeah,
win.
yeah, absolutely. But it's like a full circle type deal because like Seattle went to Detroit and beat the Lions. Are the Lions better than the Chiefs? Absolutely not. So it's like any team
Yeah.
can
And
beat
that
any
was a
other
game
team on any given
Detroit
Sunday.
kind of dominated that game until late when Seattle really came back on him. And then, Jared Goff made a dumb mistake like he always does in crunch time. But that was a really nice win for Seattle. I thought they kind of woke up during that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And they fell back asleep in the Cincinnati game. But but the thing about that is like we'll get to the NFC here shortly. But if you actually our team watched the tape, Seattle was in the red zone 90% of that game. They literally should have steamrolled the Bengals by at least 2 to 3 touchdowns.
They've been bad in the red zone all year.
All year.
They just haven't been very good, but they can move the ball regardless, which is weird because they've got guys that can get open in the end zone, and Kenneth Walker's a really good player. So you wouldn't expect them to be bad in the red zone. So you would expect that to change. We'll
Yeah,
see what happens this
absolutely.
week against the Browns. It'll be a good test for both teams to see exactly where they are
Yeah,
offensively for
I
the Seahawks and defensively for the Browns.
100% agree. But like I said, moving on, Ravens, they got the North. Let's just move on. The East, got to play bias here. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills. They have the chance to actually turn, even though they're third in the league in points per game, they still have a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to
Yeah.
this offense. I think this is one of the teams that has to make a trade defensively because they keep having guys dropping. And that's not good for this team. This team needs to be a top 10 unit with a top 5 offense in order to succeed and probably potentially get a Super Bowl run. So if they make a trade, this is one of those trade deadline things we were kind of, sprinkling in here and there, but they have to make a move and it has to be something impactful. So if they're in the market either for a wide receiver too, because I think Gabe Davis ain't it. I think he's a
No,
good
I
complementary
agree.
player, but they probably, unfortunately, and I hate to say it, he might be a little dusty, but they might have to give up something for DeAndre Hopkins. They might have to. I don't want to. I think
I
only
think
in
it's more
this
likely they get
offense.
Henry.
Yeah, I know. I think they like James Cook a lot. And actually referring to Derrick
Why?
Henry, I think referring to Derrick Henry, they said my friends on the podcast last night said the most likely landing spot if King Henry gets moved is Dallas. I think it's Baltimore. I think anything to
Oh
solidify that
man,
run game,
if I was an AFC team and Baltimore gets Derrick Henry, that's a scary proposition.
just wrap it up.
Not that
Just
I
wrap
don't
up
think
the
Derrick
season.
Henry is what he was 2-3 years ago. I don't think he's that guy, but he doesn't need to be in that offense. He can be the guy he is now and put up the numbers he did 2-3 years ago because just
Exactly.
Lamar's playing really well. He just is.
Exactly.
And they find ways to get
Exactly.
guys open in the running game. I mean, they've made Gus Edwards look like a beast at times. And not that Gus Edwards is a
Hey, man.
bad player, but he's not a guy who should be putting up 100-yard games with any consistency.
I agree. 100% agree, which is why I think that it would be probably a perfect fit
Wow, that's
for
scary to
King
think
Henry
about. I
to
don't
go
like
to the
that.
Ravens.
I don't like that. I don't like that trade at all.
Redacted. Redacted. I don't want to hear that trade ever again.
I'd rather see
um,
him in Buffalo. I think that's the one question we really need about Josh Allen and the Bills. What do they look like when they can run the ball? But we don't know. And I just don't think James Cook's the guy. I don't think he's bad, but I think if he's getting 5 to 10 touches a game, sort of in a Kareem Hunt role, like when the Browns had Chubb, I mean, and then, somebody like Henry getting, 12 to 15 carries a game, like that kind of thing. I think that's the role that Cook's best suited for.
well, like I said, boots on the ground, they love James Cook. So it's probably not going to happen. Just throwing it out there.
Fair enough.
And
I
again,
wish them luck.
yeah, right. First team in for me is the Miami Dolphins. I think they play enough bad opponents where they can punch them in the mouth and take the blows that they've been getting from when they do face better teams. They're going to have to make a run in this division because there's a couple more punch in the mouth games coming up. Again, like
Oh
you
yeah.
mentioned, they have another matchup against Buffalo. They still got to do the Jets thing. You can't just write off the Patriots anymore, even though they're going to write them off on Sunday because they're going to destroy the Patriots on Sunday. But I mean, it might be tough for them, but I think Miami's too well coached, too offensively, in tune with one another, and
Well, we'll
Tua
see if
stays
Tyreek
healthy.
Hill plays. It would be interesting to see what they look like against the Patriots without Tyreek Hill, because that
He was
defense has
back at,
been a
he
little
was back at
shaky.
practice.
I don't,
He'll be all right.
I don't think Mac Jones is good, but if they're going to play the dink and dunk offense where he throws, he's 22 of 27 for 197 yards, I think they can do something because that keeps him from making mistakes. And if the offense can just not make mistakes, their defense is quite good. I don't think they're
Mhm.
excellent. I don't think they're probably like a borderline top 10 defense. I don't think they're one of the 12 top 5 defenses, not one of the 5 top 5 defenses. As I like to jokingly say.
I see what you mean.
But
Next pick,
yeah,
first one.
they should. That's a game where Miami should take care of business.
Yeah, next pick for me is controversial, and I don't care what anybody says. The New York Jets are going to make the playoffs, and here's why.
Wow.
Here's why.
Wow, you love Zach Wilson.
Yo, it's not necessarily Zach Wilson. It's that the fact that whatever room Aaron Rodgers is in, he's probably going to be playing by week 9. So, well, obviously, no, that's a joke. But this defense is too talented. And I think they finally
Uh,
realized, I think Robert Saleh finally realized it's like, we can't play through the pass. We have to start establishing the run to the point where they need to get the ball in Breece Hall's hands more often. And the fact that they're trying to get rid of Dalvin Cook now just kind of is more attest to that. So any team that can run the ball effectively, limit turnovers, and play as great a defense as they're known to play. Again, Zach Wilson is not some bum. He's a first round kid. But that's the thing. He's a kid. So if you keep putting him in a situation where he only has to throw, let's say 14, 15, 17, 20 times, the Jets can win football games. And I think
that's not a lot. That's not a lot of pass attempts.
That's not a lot of pass attempts. But if you can establish the run in this league, I think you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Especially, like I said, the way they play defense.
It's about being more than one dimensional. And that's why I think Brock Purdy looks so good. And that's why I thought Jimmy Garoppolo looks so good in San Francisco. If you can do multiple things and keep the defense guessing, that's how you do it. Because if they know you're going to do one thing, like, it's really tough to consistently win football games that way. Your Bills know that as well as anybody. It's save us in the fourth quarter, Josh Allen. It's like, well, shit, man. Like, I can be great, but, asking me to be great every fourth quarter of every playoff game, like, who does that? Like, Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. Like, that's basically the list.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then last team in, and I hate to say it, but I agree with you. Crean rises to the top. The Bengals are making the playoffs this year. They have to. Joe Burrow is too good. He's him. I mean, I don't have anything else to say, but Joe Burrow is probably one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL, and those guys don't miss the playoffs. They just don't. AFC, top 3 in the AFC.
No, I think I have him third overall because I have Mahomes at the top, and then I think I have after much begrudged acceptance, Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow are, I think, at that next tier down. He's a beast, man. They find ways to win games, and I don't have a lot of respect for his coach. Like, he's fine. I don't think he's terrible. I think what he does is he does a lot of the pre-planning, and when it comes to game day, I think they just let Joe lead them in the battle.
Absolutely.
The analogy I used was back in olden times. I'm a huge fan of battles of antiquity. And it was not uncommon for the king or whoever, like the tribes back then before they had kings and all that shit, he would be on the battlefield, and then he would cede command of the army for the battle to the generals. So I think that is what they do. And Joe's really fucking good at it. They're the only team that worries me when I think of the 3 teams. I think it's San Francisco, Philly, and Kansas City. I know we haven't talked about the NFC yet, but I think those are the 3 teams that are going to the Super Bowl winners in that group. Cincinnati is like just on the outside of that, and they make me worried when I bet money on just those 3 teams.
Yeah, but like I said, man, the cream always rises to the top, and great quarterbacks just don't get left out the playoffs like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and say the Cincinnati Bengals will be in the playoffs. So, I mean, we can make that dreaded transition to the NFC, and you already alluded to it. I think you and I both agree, and tell me if I'm wrong, but the Eagles are the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I think they look like the best team because San Francisco's a little banged up, and they have a weapon now. They've turned the brotherly shove from just this, kind of thing that they did once in a while to it's a weapon that they're deploying with a lot more regularity, and it is getting into other teams' heads. And that's where I think they have the edge. Like, they've got teams psyched out knowing, like, it's 3rd and 11 and they get 9 yards, and it's, maybe a yard, they get 10, whatever. It's, now all of a sudden it's 4th and 1, 4th and a yard and a half. They're just like running up there to do it. And you're just like, fuck.
They start every series.
So much pressure.
They start every series 1st and 9.
Yeah. It just puts so much pressure on the defense. And they're so good at all the other things. AJ Brown, man, dude, he's just going off this year. He's a beast. He's an absolute beast. Can you believe Tennessee's like, nah, we don't want that guy. Better without him.
Yeah, better without him. Traylon Burks will be fine. Traylon Burks is okay. Sorry about it.
I don't dislike the idea of rotating your receivers. We've seen Pittsburgh do that for years. But when you get a guy that's that good, you have to be able to recognize that talent. And him and Devontae Smith together are great. Gobert's just good enough across the middle. Hurts is just playing really good football. He turns the ball over too much. He's still turning the ball over too much right now. But I don't think it matters. They're just damn good. And
Julio Jones there too.
You like what?
Julio Jones there too, bro.
Oh yeah, I saw he caught a pass. He looked his age.
Yeah.
All these guys that we made such a fuss about, like Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott's on what, a 2-win Patriots team? Yeah, they're 2-5. Woo! Delvin Cook about to be traded by the Jets. Poor DeAndre Hopkins. He could be in Kansas City right now. He'd be making half as much money, and he'd be way happier. More fun to play for Kansas City than to play for the Titans.
Kansas City.
Where were his boys at in that? Like he had to have wanted to get paid. Because somebody had to pull him aside and be like, dude, you can't, like, Ryan Tannehill is going to be your quarterback. You know you're not going to be happy.
I mean, you got to realize that there must be some nice, like, homes or retirement communities or something over there. Because remember, Julio went there too. Like, it's like, why?
Because they don't know because Tennessee doesn't know what they're doing. They let A.J. Brown go and they signed those guys.
Fair.
But Philly looks the best, especially my preseason pick was San Francisco. When we did the pod, I was on San Francisco, but they're beat up and Brock Purdy looks mortal. And I think that Philly defense in a head-to-head matchup is going to make life uncomfortable for him. I think he's got the balls to stay in the pocket and try to make the throws, but at some point he just doesn't have the talent. He just doesn't have the arm strength, and like attacking defenses, I think, are going to give him problems.
That's fair. So who you got at number 2 then?
I mean, I have the Niners as the second best team. That defense is really good. They got a ton of talent on offense. I do think, the further into the season we get, like the more I'm thinking, like, fuck, man, he might be right about the Seahawks. Like they may sneak that division now that San Francisco's sort of in turmoil here.
They're knocking. They're knocking on the door.
It's like we just said about Miami and Buffalo. One of those teams is going to have to go on the road in the first round. Seattle or San Francisco is going to have to go on the road in the first round. And I guarantee you, whoever wins the NFC South is really hoping it's not Seattle winning that division, because they're not going to want to see the Niners come into their building in the first round of the playoffs. That's not going to be fun.
Nope. No one wants to see that. They don't want to see that.
But that's the peak. It's those two teams. And then I think it's Seattle and Dallas. I think they're right there with Detroit hovering right below them. I do think Detroit's played pretty well. Their defense has played a lot better than I expected, and they seem to be able to score offense with those weapons. I'm on St. Brown, man. That dude, awesome name, awesome player. He's great. Can't wait to see him on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's true.
But that division,
so Thanksgiving, baby.
That division, not very good. I don't know how much. They're going to win 12 or 13 games. Their schedule's not very tough. So maybe they find a way to sneak their way into the discussion for the 1 seed. Philadelphia's got a tough road coming up, but they're good. So they're probably going to win most of those. They'll win most of those games. I don't see them losing more than 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, so, I 100% agree.
So what does that give us? Philly 1, San Francisco 2, Dallas, Seattle 3, 4, whichever order you want to put them in, with Detroit 5. And then somebody's got to win the NFC South. I thought it was going to be Atlanta. I've got money on them. They're leading the division, so let's go with them, man. Let's just keep riding with Atlanta. I don't think they're very good. They're going to lose in the first round of Seattle or San Francisco, but
are you sitting here and telling me, the listeners looking at us at home, the people in our podcast, that you put hard-earned American dollars on Arthur Smith?
I did.
On Arthur Smith?
Yes, and I got great odds to do it too, and those bets are going to cash. Their over-under was 7.5. They're already 4-3. They still got 4 games in the division.
They might finish 4-13. They might finish 4-13.
4 games in the division, man. They're easily getting to 8.
Well, okay, all right. I might see it. I might see
it. And 8 and 9 is probably good enough to win the division.
It is. That there's no doubt about it. 8 and 9 will be the division winner in the South. No question.
It was last year, so why wouldn't it be this year?
It's the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Same damn thing.
I don't think. Well, let's see. How are the Fighting Bakers doing? Oh, it's 10-9. Baker playing all right, 8 of 16, 88 yards and a touchdown. Josh Allen's
8?
got a pick.
No. That's the
Yeah,
interception prop you should have took.
11 of 14 for a buck 29 and a pick. He ran one in.
Yeah,
Chris
we're
Godwin
getting
got a
there.
touchdown. Yeah,
The
you know.
fighting Buccaneers, huh?
Sorry, 10-10. They just kicked the extra point. So yeah, they're hanging in there. So it looks like Buffalo's struggling a little bit. I mean,
That's all right.
so two more, so that's what? That's the 4 division winners, Seattle and Dallas. So that leaves one playoff spot. So you're basically looking at Minnesota. I don't think Washington can hang. The Saints stink, man. I don't know what it is about Derek Carr that people love, but he's just not a good quarterback. Like, if he was the quarterback everybody talks about him as, like, even as an average quarterback, like, he doesn't make the playoffs. He's made the playoffs once in his career, and in that playoff game, he was abysmal. Bad fourth down decisions, just bad picks. He's just not the guy. He's a worse version of Kirk Cousins.
I mean, we don't need to talk about anybody in the South. I mean, let's be honest.
No, they're not going
they're
anywhere.
sending one team, and it's a wrap. So
Yeah.
it's one team in the playoffs.
And
So,
maybe 2 teams get to 9 wins, and the rest, like the other NFC teams are garbage, and they lose too many games. So 9 wins get you in. I mean, maybe. That's
sure.
the only way you're seeing more than one NFC South team and that would have to be Baker in Atlanta, because Carolina's a disaster. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Good thing they, traded next year's number 1 pick. Hopefully it won't be that high. Hopefully it won't be that high of a pick.
Good thing about it. I mean, so for me, obviously, I think the Eagles are good enough to sustain that number 1 overall seed. I think they'll be just fine. The only thing about the number 2 seed is that it's probably going to go to the Lions, only because their schedule is garbage. I mean, like, they literally just faced one of their toughest tasks, and the rest of it sucks. So, I mean, I think they'll be just fine. They're a 12, 13 win team. So, if the Eagles are going to hover around 12, 13, 14 wins, then it'll probably put the Lions at number 2. As bad as I don't want to believe in the fucking Cowboys, I unfortunately have to accept that they're actually decent. So you got to throw them in one of the wild card spots, because they're obviously not winning the East because they're in with the Eagles. My still bold prediction will still stand packed. The Seahawks will win the West. So the Seahawks will be defending home turf against some poor team that has to go in there and get eviscerated. And I hope it's the Cowboys, and that's going to be hilarious. I think San Francisco is obviously too well coached and too just good overall. Obviously, they're going to find out if it's the system this week, because there is no Brock Purdy. It's Sam Darnold at the helm. So if everybody thinks that it's the system, well, guess what? If Sam Darnold goes out and throws 303 in a victory, okay, maybe it's the system. If he goes out and throws 105 and two interceptions, well, I guess Brock Purdy's pretty damn good. So we're going to find out a lot.
I haven't looked at the injury report. Is Debo going to be back for this game?
He is out.
Okay, he's out for a while.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's so you don't have your.
We'll see what it looks like then.
Yeah,
they've looked pedestrian
absolutely.
without Debo. They looked pedestrian against the Browns, and they looked pedestrian last week. I'm totally blanking on who they lost to, but in last week's game too, Minnesota. Yeah, when they lost to
San Fran. Yeah, on Monday. Yeah,
mm-hmm. Yeah, Monday night.
Yep. Yeah,
your Seahawks plus 450 to win their division. Just throwing that out there.
Add to cart. Throw a quick hundo on that real quick. Come on now. But the South, I think, I mean, everybody sucks. I mean, I can't put money on Arthur Smith. I still got to say that the Buccaneers will somehow find a way to finish 8-9 and win this division. Their defense is just too good. And if they get just a little bit out of the running game and not put the entire onus on Baker Mayfield, I think they should be just fine. And I think defense can win games and championships. This is not a championship caliber team. I'm not saying that. But some unfortunate soul is going to have to go to Tampa and potentially hold an L when they're not supposed to. There's going to be a 13-win team that has to go to Tampa.
Yeah.
And they might mess around and lose. Like, again, there's a lot of San Francisco fans out there. I get the bandwagoning.
If Dallas went there and lost, nobody would be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they beat them last year, Tom Brady's swan song. But at the same time, like, can they do that again? Because there's more questions circling the Dallas Cowboys now. You don't have your all-world cornerback in Diggs. Like, he's gone. Leighton Vander Esch is always injured. He's out this week. So it's like, what do you have? So they
Yeah.
can't run the ball. You got Tony Pollard that's averaging less than 4 yards a carry right now, and they don't have a number
Yeah.
2 wide receiver. They don't have a tight end. I mean, like, I'm kind of raising the question: can that Cowboys defense carry them far enough to make a playoff run? Because their offense is kind of mid. It's a
They've got a hard
mid
ceiling.
offense.
They're like every other NFC team. They've got a hard ceiling, and that hard ceiling is Philadelphia and San Francisco. They just can't get by those teams. Somebody's
Sure.
got to be third best. Somebody's got to be fourth best. And like, sorry, Dallas, you're right in there. You're not going to get to be the best. This is just
I
how
agree.
it turned out. Sorry about your luck.
Yeah, absolutely. And then whoever the last wild card team is going to be one and out. So I don't care. Like, Minnesota, sure. It's Minnesota.
I guess
Why not?
Minnesota would be entertaining, especially with the rise of
Entertaining.
who's Addison. With him and Jefferson together, they should be exciting on offense. Even if I'm still not trusting Kirk Cousins, man.
But like you said, entertaining. I think they could be
Oh yeah,
entertaining. I
oh
think
yeah,
if they start being on the right side of those close games and actually learn how to finish games, kind of like they did on Monday,
yeah.
I
And they did
mean,
this week.
more power to them. Yeah, more power to them. They might be able to mess around and have an upset, but I don't really see that happening. Like, you're not
Yeah,
gonna go. Philly's gonna be number one, so you're not gonna go to Detroit and think you're gonna hang with that team. You're not gonna go to Seattle and think you're gonna hang with it. You're not gonna go to San Francisco and think that no, it's just no.
and we'll see what Detroit looks like hosting a playoff game. You would expect that fan base to really show up in
Lum,
mass, and we've seen
lum.
teams have come to Cleveland this year, and the fans have just intimidated some of these teams. I mean, it is so loud in there. It's raucous. You get those really passionate Midwestern fans. It's going to be cold. Like, they're inside, I know, in Detroit, but, just like, it's loud, it's intimidating. And I think the defenses are really feeding on that right now. And like, I think that's part of why the Browns have looked so good at home, is they're just feeding off of that crowd. And it's just been
Mm-hmm.
pretty amazing. And if you wind up in a situation where you're playing in Detroit in the first round of the playoffs and the crowd's like that, then and now, I'm on Ross St. Brown just broke a 55-yard pass. Like,
Yeah.
shit, now you're down 7-0. And now all of a sudden that crowd found another level, and you're like, you can't even turn your head. And now it's 10-0. Like, you go
Sure.
3 and out, and now somebody good, like, it could be somebody good. Like, you could see Dallas going down 10-0 to Detroit. We saw it happen with Seattle. Seattle came back and won that game, of course, but they can jump on you, man. And once you get jumped on in the playoffs, things can unravel pretty quick. I mean, we saw Kyler Murray not be prepared to play a playoff game. He was overwhelmed by the moment, completely overwhelmed
Kyler.
by the moment.
Well, like I said, we set our playoff teams coming up on a nice mark in the podcast. This was a great discussion between what we think is going to happen. So we got our playoffs team set. Go ahead and predict the Super Bowl. Have they changed? Have your thoughts changed at the midway point of the season? Or are you kind of looking at those three teams that you've alluded to earlier to kind of be the cream of the crop, and that's the Super Bowl matchup we're going to see?
Yeah, I think
Those
it's
are the
Kansas
three?
City against Philadelphia or San Francisco. And right now, I'm leaning I was leaning San Francisco. Now I kind of lean Philly. But I think if you want to bet those Super Bowl matchups, I think those are the ones to bet, because I just think Kansas City is just better than everybody. We keep doing this thing every year. And I wanted to tell you, where do you think Kansas City's defense ranks?
They're a top 5 unit.
They're giving up 15 points a game. That's second best in the league, only behind Baltimore. Like, we're going to have to live through an era where the Chiefs have a very good young defense and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Come on, man. Like, come on. Like, when we say things like these guys could potentially go on a run that challenge Brady and Belichick, this is why. Like, that defense is going to be better this year than it was last year. And they won the Super Bowl last year, and Patrick Mahomes was playing on one goddamn ankle.
True. I give you that.
I know Miami hung a 70 burger on Denver, but Denver stinks.
I agree. 100% agree. I mean, okay, so my perspective from a logical fan, right? Not the fan, right? Because a lot of my fantasy booking wants to say, if this happens, if A happens, B happens, B
Yeah.
happens, C will happen, and then you get like this funky matchup of like Super Bowl contenders potential, this, that, and the third. If the way things shake out like it's supposed to, it's probably Kansas City, it's probably Philadelphia, and I'm okay with that. I just think that the quarterback play in San Francisco is not quite good enough. I think the scheme
Yeah,
is
that's
great.
fair.
I think their defense is great. I think their running game is elite. CMC, like I said, outside MVP candidate. But if things are how they're supposed to be, the NFL script writers, you know what I'm saying? I would see Kansas City and Philadelphia. If things work out the way that I would love to see it work out, I want to see a second round matchup between Kansas City and the Miami Dolphins, and I want to see the Dolphins hang 50 on them. And then they got to go to Buffalo, and they'll lose to Buffalo, and the Buffalo will go to the Super Bowl. Okay?
Wow.
No, that's what I want to see. And then on the opposite side, I would love to see a team like, I don't know who could go into Philly and feasibly win. That's my whole hang
It's
up.
another place
like
where you got to deal with a really raucous crowd.
Yeah, that's my whole hang up. But the thing about Philly and that crowd is that if there's a team, let's say the Lions, can go in there and, like you said, kind of hang up the first 7 to 14 points, that crowd's going to be like, boo! Like, where's our expectations? We're supposed to be Super Bowl champ, blah, blah, blah. And they will turn on you like that. And I understand they're a semi-veteran team at this point. They should be able to kind of tune that type of stuff out. But in the heat of the moment, especially in the playoff game, Dan Campbell's a good coach. Like there's going to be good coaches that you're going to be going against from the NFC side. Pete Carroll, Shannon, like all those guys are good coaches. If you can jump on this team quickly, because even though the Eagles have a great record, they haven't been impressive, right? And I think that's been like the big knock on the Eagles so far is like they're winning, but they could be better. They're winning, but Jalen Hurts turned the ball over 3 times against the Jets. Like, they're winning, but like, there's obviously going to be chinks in the armor. So like, again,
you're gonna have games like that. Like, it just
there's
happens.
No perfect team.
Nobody's fantastic every single week of the year. Well, except for that year that Tom Brady was just throwing bombs to Randy Moss every week, and it was just like, well, I guess this is just what we're doing from now on. I hope somebody can beat these guys.
And then they got Eli Manninged. Yes.
I just showed my spouse that play, and we were kind of chuckling about how David Tyree has caught as many passes in the NFL since that Super Bowl as we have.
Bro.
That was his last NFL catch.
But he will live in infamy because of that catch. And good on him. Good on him, bro.
We would have never heard the end of it from Boston fans, so I'm glad it came out that way. Even if a New York team had to win to do it, it's fine.
Sure. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, all right, man. I definitely appreciate the time. You devoted a good hour plus to me.
Thanks for having me on. This was a blast.
No, I'm glad you came on, man. I can rant about football for hours on end. It's nice to get a different perspective. Like just talking about DFS and then converting to talking about, real life football.
Yeah.
So, and it correlates because these are the things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for trends. I'm looking for teams trending up, teams trending down. And it correlates with one another, where when I go to my next shows or when you go to your shows, from the betting side of it, it's like, oh, I remember when Sully and I talked about this. Or I remember when Sully and I talked about that. Like it coordinates with one another. So anytime, you're welcome into the deli. Everybody that's been listening, again, make sure you hit that like and subscribe on the way out. Don't forget to pop over to the YouTube channel to watch the video version of this and me and my aneurysms. If you like hands, come on over to the YouTube channel and remember to subscribe on your way out. But until next time, for my boy Ed, I've been your boy Sully. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.